and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Curot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2013 period piece romantic drama titled The Great Gatsby. Now, The Great Gatsby is based on a novel by F Scott Fitzgerald. It is directed by Baz Luhrmann. It is produced by Lucy Fisher, Catherine Knappman, Catherine Martin, who won an Oscar for Best Costume Design, and Douglas Wick. The script was also done by Baz Luhrmann along with Craig Pearce. The score was done by Craig Armstrong, the photography by Simon Duggan, and the editing by Jason Ballantyne, Jonathan Redmond, and Matt Vila. And the stars of the movie are Leonardo Di Caprio, Carey Mulligan, Tobey Maguire, Joel Edgerton, Elizabeth Debicki and Isla Fisher. The story, as you all know, goes a little something like this. Tobey Maguire stars as Nick Carraway, a former writer who is now in the bond-selling business. The opening scenes took place 7 years after Gatsby's death. Now Nick Carraway has been institutionalized in a sanatorium because he is there because of alcoholism and depression, and he is now kind of forced to write about his experiences he had with his best friend Jay Gatsby, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Carraway has always been fond for his neighbor, who was a charismatic, dynamic millionaire, and every evening he throws these elaborate parties at his abode, but he still somehow maintains his melancholy ways. He still has feelings for Nick's cousin, Daisy Buchanan, played by Carey Mulligan. Daisy has moved on in a rather unloved marriage to a skirt-chasing, borderline racist scoundrel by the name of Tom Buchanan, played by Joel Edgerton, who has all the money in the world, and he plays off as the antagonist to Jay Gatsby, who didn't always start off as rich. You know, he was a poor farmer son working in the Dakota area. I don't remember if it was North Dakota or South Dakota, but somewhere around there. And whereas Buchanan never really had to work hard to achieve financial success, Gatsby, struggled and had to claw and scratch his way to become the way he is. Gatsby lives on the opposing side of the lake where Tom and Daisy lives, just so that he could be closer to her. He eventually persuades Nick to set up a reunion in hopes to reignite the flame to the torch that was put out years ago between him and Daisy. And that's kind of pretty much what the story is. Of course, the story in this romantic drama, there's many different issues faced, including mystery, scandal, yeah, that's what I meant. Mystery, scandal, there's a bit of romance. There also is some low-key humor implemented into the story as well. What did I personally think of this movie? Let's just put it this way. In spite of having a degree in journalism, and definitely I do have high regards to the literary masterpieces that have had the honor to be read and admired, one of Scott Fitzgerald's great classics is definitely The Great Gatsby. It truly is definitely a fine piece of American literacy. I was also very fond of the adaptations that came after this movie. Alright, I know there was two other really old ones back in 1926 and 1949. I never got a chance to see that one. I mean, come on, I'm not that old. But I did actually had the honors to see the 1974 Robert Redford, Mia Farrow, Sam Waterston, Bruce Dern adaptation back in '74. Well, actually I saw that one not too long ago. The '74 adaptation, that is. And there was also a 2000 adaptation that I also seen, and this one had Mira Sorvino and Toby Stephens as the leading characters. So I'm sure my teachers and instructors, if they ever had a chance to see this later adaptation directed by Baz Luhrmann, they, like me, will mostly have their eyes rolling. It could be, out of disgust, or it could be out of admiration, depending on their point of view. To me, this movie definitely caught me rolling my eyes quite a lot of times, because I think this is one of the more overrated adaptations of Fitzgerald's novel. Not to say the Robert Redford movie adaptation was any better. But it was better. I would definitely recommend the '74 version over this one anytime. But even though I know the story and the happenings, I went to see what Mr. Luhrmann had to offer in this adaptation. And one bit of advice for those who saw the movie but never had the pleasure to read the book, I would suggest for you guys to read the book after watching this movie. Not because of what Justice Luhrmann did with the book, but more like what he neglected. Like all the movies before this one, that includes Moulin Rouge, one of the things that really pissed me off more was Luhrmann takes his execution in an over-the-top perspective, which will either be liked by some or chastised by others. Once again, this movie, like Moulin Rouge, falls victim for the usage of playing inappropriate music that does not fit the time period, which to me is ludicrous. And I don't mean the hip-hop artist ludicrous, I mean it's absolutely appalling. I found it absurd to see Mr. Gatsby driving his car to the sounds of Jay-Z, with contributions to modern artists like will.i.am, Beyonce and Lana Del Rey, and yet he should be driving to the beat of big band artists around that time period. Guys like Charlie Bird Parker, Louis Armstrong, Cab Calloway, or other crooners from the jazz era, since the setting of the movie is in 1922. Wouldn't that make a lot more sense by putting those big band era musicians into this story? I just found it absurd that they would put modern music into this period piece. It doesn't match. Sure, these modern artists may make this film a bit more fun, but it's still inappropriate. And to add more to the strange brew, Luhrmann decided, hey, to fit the modern spirit, let's make it in 3D. Sure, why not? A 3D period piece. Who would ever thought that day would come? It might work well in the party scenes, along with the streamers, the confetti, and the fireworks, just to give it a more in-your-face look. But by the second half of the film, the 3D just loses its necessity. But okay, it's still fun to look at. So even though the visual effects are a thing of beauty, and the storytelling was what it's the storytelling that really brought the film down quite tremendously. Sure, his flamboyance in making the film looks exquisite, but the actual story itself leaves you with an empty feeling in the end. The plot was quite impressive, with Gatsby and Daisy trying to get back together, but at times the execution feels quite tiresome and not very fulfilling. And sometimes I think the chemistry between DiCaprio and Mulligan seem to be somewhat lost. Sure, they turn in great performances, but the passion and the devotion towards one another is not very convincing. And that's not the fault of DiCaprio or Buchanan. They did everything they can to at least make this film intriguing, but I just never see the spark between Gatsby and Daisy. They don't seem to have much chemistry between the two, and that ruins the atmosphere quite substantially, especially if they're trying to get back together after their love was taken from them. Tobey Maguire looks too one-dimensional as Carraway, as opposed to Sam Waterston's version. At least his character, at least Sam Waterston, when he played Nick Carraway in the 1974 adaptation, I was thinking he should have won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, because he was the best character in that 1974 adaptation with Robert Redford and Mia Farrow, and he was the more interesting character. Tobey Maguire's Nick Carraway was not all that interesting. All he was there was do was just to narrate the story, spoon feed us like as if we were blind or too stupid to know what was going on. Like we needed to know every detail of the scenery that happened. It just was not necessarily needed. And it seems to me like all he was just, you know, like a beta male to the alpha male stance that Jay Gatsby possessed. You know, kind of like a lapdog. Do this, do that type of thing. And he continually became like subservient to Gatsby's demands. And that just does not seem to be who Nick Carraway really is. He was like supposed to be like the unsung, low-key protagonist in the story. Here he just seems to be more than just a bona fide lackey. And we're not here to entirely put the blame game on Maguire, but it's the script by Luhrmann and Craig Pearce which has him narrating and observing the world around him without really having an idea how he feels about what he's up against. There was just a lack of emotion towards this Nick Carraway character. The final minutes of this film get quite drastically intense, and the gist of the story is where the story really begins to unfold, and it's the last 20 minutes of the film is when everything seems to come into place, but by then it's too little, too late. Sure, the film overall was visually stunning and the music was fun, though not fitting the time period. The performances were impressive and the story was splendid, but in spite of all that, the film did not offer enough bite than it should have. With all the scandals, the mysticism, the romance has to offer, it left me feeling very, very cheated. The film is entertaining as it is, but overall it is still overrated. The book is better, and if I was to recommend people, I would actually take the time and to see the 1974 adaptation, which is to me the better of the other adaptations. I mean, Robert Redford, Bruce Dern, Mia Farrow, Sam Waterston, and the likes all turned in really good performances here. The performances here were not bad, but they weren't really anything that special. If there was anything really special, I would probably give hats off to Catherine Martin for creating these very, very stunningly beautiful costumes, and the set pieces and the production design was also pretty good. So, you know, hats off to her. The technical features were actually very good. If I was to give this if I was to give a rating to this movie, I would probably give it a 6. Well, I guess that's all the time we have for the writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. You can leave a comment if you like. Remember, be kind, be courteous, and I have no room for rudeness. So until next time, I'll be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Carruth Writer saying, take care of yourselves, and I will see you around. Goodbye.